Hello, today is September 14th, 2021, and welcome to our first cybersecurity risk advisory. Now, we are focusing on the local area. As you can see, hashtag cybersecure Laredo, that is our goal. As a small business, to see how many small businesses can we assist in our local city to better secure their businesses, to minimize cyber risk. And so we know that cybersecurity is the buzzword. The media has been filled with reports of breaches, ransomware, supply chain attacks, third-party risk, etc. It's the world we live in now. But our goal is not to bombard you with more news, nor is it to scare you, but hopefully to help you understand the risk so that you can make the best business decisions and respond accordingly. And so once again, we welcome you to our first risk advisory. And so we're going to be covering a couple different areas that we want you to focus your attention on. Now, the first one to focus your attention on is CVE 2021-40444. Now, if you're wondering what the CVE stands for, it's Common Vulnerabilities and Exposure. And so the mission of the CVE program is to identify, define, and catalog publicly disclosed cybersecurity vulnerabilities. And so there's one CVE record for each vulnerability. And so once these vulnerabilities are discovered, and assigned, then they're published from these different organizations from around the world that have partnered with CVE. And so one of them is Microsoft. And so we're going to be focusing on this CVE 2021-40444, which is all built into this MS-HTML remote code execution vulnerability. And so you may be wondering what this is. So let's just get a little details of what this Trident is, or MS-HTML. Wikipedia puts it as a proprietary browser engine for the Microsoft Windows version of Internet Explorer developed by Microsoft. And now the purpose is it allows different software developers to easily add web browsing functionality to their own applications. And so other programmers, developers use this browser engine, Trident, within their different softwares. And so it's something that's built into Windows. And so there was a way that a threat actor found a way around the protections. And so as you can see within this particular CVE, the vulnerability was released September 7th. It was updated on the 9th, and today on the 14th, there was another update. And so you think about the purpose of this, and then we're going to talk a little bit how it's used, that in order for this to be executed, you'll notice that an attacker would require the user to take some action before the vulnerability can be exploited. It isn't automatic. And so the end user has to do something. But what? How easy would it be to trigger an attack with this exploit? Well, let's take a look. So here we are with this phrase. It says it requires a user to take some action. Well, what does this mean? Well, it would be just as simple as having a file there in your browser and your Explorer window and using a preview. It doesn't necessarily have to be an Office file. It can be a rich text format file. It could be a doc file. It could be an Excel file. It could be PowerPoint. And the only thing you would have to do is preview it. And if you didn't have the appropriate security measures, then this could be exploited. And you could then be under the control of a threat actor, a hacker, and you wouldn't even know it. Another way this could be done is when you receive an email. And who doesn't enjoy using the preview section? You get an email and you just want to make sure you know what's going on with it without fully opening it. Well, what is different when you receive it within an email or to download it from the internet, well, Microsoft does something a little differently. That doesn't just automatically give you a preview. And so let's take a look at what happens when we have protected view enabled. So let's take a look and see what's happening here with this particular email. Now we can see we have an email, someone that has sent over a resume. And we want to find out what's going on in this attachment. And so we try the preview. But because of protected view being on there, well, guess what? We can't see what's happening. That's something built in within Windows. And so in order to find out what's happening with this, well, then you would really have to open the document up. So you double click on it and allow Word to open it up. But guess what? Protected view is enabled. And so this is where the user would have to do something. In order to do something, as you can see, you'd have to enable editing. The end user would have to do something. And so what happens when the end user clicks enable editing? Well, then again, there's some things that have been disabled. Now you begin to see that there's more than just a document here, because now there's some macros. But once you click enable content, well, guess what? And now it's been set off. And now it carries out the same process that it would have under just using the preview under the Explorer window. And so now this helps us to appreciate some things. And we're going to discuss some good things and some bad things. So what's the good news? Well, we can see that when Microsoft opens documents downloaded from the internet, well, protected view or application guard is enabled. Now that would help prevent the attack. What's the not so good news? Well, if the email was crafted well enough, a phishing email, then the attacker would have to convince the user to open the malicious document. Now this could really be a problem if you have a user, in which many are running as an administrator, a local administrator. And so users whose accounts are configured with fewer rights, well, they could have less impact, but they could still be compromised. They could still be compromised. And so now you begin seeing there's some things that's good and bad that you would certainly want to be. So what's the good news? If you have Microsoft Defender AV enabled or Defender for Endpoint, then there would likely be detection and protections for this known vulnerability. Currently, there is not a fix. Actually, today a patch was released. It needs to be tested to be sure. But what we want to point out is also, even though you may have had Defender on or your appropriate AV, would they detect this type of attack? You recall that if you had a file opened up in Explorer window, that's all it takes is a preview in order for the actual attack to happen, and you wouldn't even know it. Also, since files that are transferred via USB drive or they're compressed and unzipped, well, they wouldn't be opened automatically in protected view, and so you wouldn't get the warnings. And so just as in the Explorer preview, the attack would happen very quickly. And it's not just Word documents, Excel, PowerPoint, Microsoft documents. It can also be rich text format, RTF files, that would still result in a compromise. And so What are some things that you should do? Well, that's where security awareness training needs to come into place. Are your end users trained? If you're clients of ours, we've taken some steps. One, because we're taking care and protecting your email, we've made adjustments within your email environment to identify malicious attachments. And if they've gotten through Microsoft's defenses or Google's defenses, then we have another layer there that will pick up on things that are missed, phishing attempts, and now they get detonated in a virtual setting to find out are they malicious or not? Would they fall under this vulnerability, this type of attack? And so if you're clients of ours, we're working hard at adding those extra layers. Also, we've configured our endpoint AV, and not only do we use Defender, but we also have secondary. We all have something else that's really primary, but we keep Defender active so that any type of MS HTML attack, it's going to be prevented. Something else that can be done if you're not with us, and that another step that we'll be taking if the update doesn't work, is disabling the preview until we are absolutely sure. And so these are certainly steps that you want to take if you have in-house IT, or if it's outsourced. Have they provided you this protection? If not, feel free to give us a call and get some assistance. So something else that you want to take account of: do your users have administrative rights? If they do, then it's time to have a conversation on how we can minimize that. Now let's move on to another issue. Now, for those of you that are iPhone users, there's an update, actually a fix, there to iOS 14.8 and iPad OS 14.8, released on the 13th. Now this was an update actually provides a fix that allows an attacker to bypass Apple's Blast Door security sandbox, meaning that whenever there was perhaps a malicious link in an iMessage, they had a sandbox system that would stop the malicious code from executing on the actual operating system and causing harm. Well, unfortunately, threat actors found a way around that, and so Apple was able to get an update pushed out. So if you are using an iPad, an iPhone, make sure you get this update. Now you may be wondering how vulnerable you might be. Well, they found out that this was happening in the wild, but the group that was using it was really a nation state type of attacker, and so the chances are slim, but we made sure we had our update done on the 13th. So we suggest, it certainly is based on risk, we suggest that you get it taken care of so that at least you have this particular risk mitigated. It only costs you time, where you won't be able to use your phone, but you also have some peace of mind when it comes to this particular attack. So it looks like we've come to the end of our first risk advisory notice from Select Secure Solutions, and we thank you for tuning in, for listening. There's certainly some things to do, but as we mentioned, we just want to make it easier for you to make the best decisions. If we're already taking care of you, we've taken steps. We're doing things proactively to assist you, to help you to be better secured. If we were not assisting you, and you have questions about this, talk to your internal IT, your outsource. If they can't help you, give us a call at 956-750-7310. Or if you're being taken care of, but you know someone else who could benefit from this information, please pass it on, forward it. We look forward to sharing with you our next risk advisory, hashtag cybersecure Laredo. We'll talk to you soon.